on the internet, because I know you do that a lot. And I found some kind of fun little quotes, so hold on. Okay, so this was a good one. The librarian of today are not fiery dragons interposed between people and the books. They are public servants who manage libraries for people. Many still think that a great reader or writer of books will an excellent librarian, but this is in need of an excellent librarian. This was my favorite. As a child, my number one best friend was the librarian. I believed all the books belonged to her. And we feel very blessed in this community to have librarians. We know that is not the norm in California right now. In fact, I was up at a job fair up in Oregon, and a librarian came up, and she said, "Well, I'm an ESL teacher. I have my librarian degree." I said, "Oh, we have librarians." And she said, "You're kidding me." She was all excited. So it is rare, but it is so important. And I think of all the kids that think, what should I do at lunchtime? What should I do? Where can I go? Where's that spot on campus? Where's that person on campus that I can talk to, that will listen to me, sometimes to their crazy stories? And sure enough, it's usually the librarian. So we'd like to honor you guys by coming up here. Okay, April Porterfield. Did I say that right? Porterfield at Bayview. Where's Tony? Is Tony here? Oh, darn. Tony has been a librarian for us a long time. One of my favorite librarians, Barbara Lawrence. Kathy Griffin. Kathy and I started teaching together at Bayview. Ollie. Martha Dyer, who is working technology as we speak. Joyce Smith. Joyce isn't here, okay. All right. Shannon Green. Veronica's Veronica. Oh, there she is. Veronica. Zalea, what a beautiful last name. Madeline Britton. Jolene Camos. I think that did it, right? Did I miss anyone? No. So, come on, get together for a big picture.
I'll go to that.
Poor Jolene's always in the back.
Okay, everybody say
Madeline Kim.
You see Madeline in there? One more time, just to make sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much. And we do have some cookies in the back to help us celebrate all the wonderful work that's done with our students.
Okay, well, thank you. The next item on our agenda is public comment, and we'd like to let the public know that we thank you for being here, attending the meeting, and your presence and comments regarding items not on the agenda are valued. Due to legal constraints of the Brown Act, your trustees may not respond or comment during public comments. Is there anyone here who wants to comment?
Hi. Just turn it, push the button up, and then just go ahead and speak.
Just real quickly, I'd like to let everyone know that Harbor High is hosting a pirate festival on Friday, May 8th. I put some flyers in the back, and I believe I distributed one to everyone on the board. It's what we used to call our Unity Community Festival, and it is a sponsorship for scholarships for some of our students from the ELAC community. So you can expect great food and great entertainment, and our new bilingual community coordinator, Angel Alvarez, is taking the lead on this, and he's really trying to expand it and making it a big event for Harbor. So we hope everyone will join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Just talk. Okay. My name's right here. Okay. My name is Kim Woodland, and I will have the other people behind me introduce themselves. We are here from the three Santa Cruz Adult School Parent Participation Nursery Schools. Hi, I'm Wendy Wyckoff, and I work at the Santa Cruz Parent Ed Nursery School and have been there for 22 years.
I'm Maggie Clef, and I'm a teacher at Santa Cruz Parent Education Nursery School for 13 years.
I'm Dara Thornton, and I don't need a microphone. I teach at Westside Parent Education Nursery School, and I've also had the privilege to teach at SC Pens. If this is something I want to hand up, I give them to you, or?
Sure. So I'm here representing all three parent education nursery schools. And we have provided parent education and rich learning environments for over 10,000 families for more than 150 years collectively. I want to start by saying thank you so much to Santa Cruz City Schools for supporting the Santa Cruz Adult School Parent Education Nursery Schools for many years. We are here to share the news with you that the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors chose to recognize our schools by designating this Friday, April 17, 2015, Santa Cruz County Parent Participation Preschool Day. Our programs give children the academic and social skills they need to be successful in school. Our programs demonstrate the value of parent involvement in education. Our programs train parents to be skilled volunteers in their children's classrooms. Our programs train parents to be leaders in their school communities. Our programs teach conflict resolution and model tolerant, inclusive community. Our programs support adults in becoming better parents. Research has shown that quality early education impacts a child's academic success more than any other period during their schooling. For 65 years, our mission has been to nurture and support the whole family through our unique parent education program. We have been facilitating parents' understanding of what children need for wholesome development since 1949. And we need a little help from you to ensure our programs can serve families in our school district for another 65 years. We have just finished surveying our collected alumni to gather data to help move us forward into a successful future. We will plan a formal presentation of our results to the board in coming weeks. Here are some poignant and notable quotes from our survey. My child's kindergarten teacher said she could clearly see the kids who had attended a Penn's preschool because they were so well equipped socially and with basic conflict resolution skills. This made her job easier. 3 minutes goes fast. Yeah, why don't you read the rest? I built a sense of community, which then directly translated to our elementary school experience. I volunteer for Home and School Club, School Site Council, a school-related nonprofit. I work in the classroom. I'm comfortable working with children and helping them through conflict. I've continued to be an activist in the best sense of the word. I am a contributor to our great neighborhood public schools. Here's another one. The knowledge I gained from the co-op transferred easily to public schools and classrooms, and I felt I could take on volunteer jobs in the classroom and apply what I learned. This program is pivotal to any community. We need to build stronger families by strengthening our parenting skills.
real and lasting change begins here. And just the last one, I am forever grateful for our learning. I'm a better person and a better parent. Thank you.
I would like to say thank you. On a separate topic altogether, I didn't know we were recognizing librarians tonight, but they are the heartbeat of any school. I so appreciate all that you do, and I so appreciate that our school district does have librarians in their schools. Thank you very much.
And we have passed out invitations to our event on Friday, and we hope you can join us at 4:30 when John Leopold will present our schools with a proclamation declaring April 17, 2015 as Santa Cruz County Parent Participation Preschool, and there will be cake.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Langston. I'm a community supporter, and I think we've all saw the wonderful spread in the Sentinel about the Ballet de los Folklorica, Viva Oaxaca. And I would urge all of you to support what has been turned out to be a unique feature of our school district that brings our communities together, and to help support Faye Silva and that wonderful group, and to be sure and attend the Taylor Booth that's coming up towards the end of the month. Again, I'm so happy and so pleased to see that this school continues, the school district continues to support those kinds of extremely cultural and very meaningful events. Thank you so much. Please support it.
The next item is the superintendent report. Good evening. I too want to extend my appreciation of our teacher librarians. The libraries in our schools are often the heart of our schools. It's a place where kids go that they feel safe. And our teacher librarians are incredible collaborators with the teachers on campus. They really are a partner in helping to design and support the instructional program, and you're going to hear from them a little bit later tonight about what some of that looks like. So thank you all. And thank you to our community, because we have our teacher librarians, because of our voters and local communities' willingness to support parcel taxes. And without that, we wouldn't be able to have the really, really rich library programs we have and many, many other programs that our community supports. Tonight, you may have noticed that Assistant Superintendent Angela Meeker is not here with us. But we are excited to know that she is on a plane on her way to attend the American Educational Research Association Conference, where she's presenting her research on the characteristics of effective teacher training programs that support recognition of the funds of knowledge that our English learners bring to their schools and their learning. And her paper was chosen and research was chosen as one to be presented at the conference. We're very proud of her, and we're anxious to hear about what she learns, as well as participating in the conference when she returns.
Just got a text, she's there safe.
All right. So, also last night, the local revenue task force was able to have its third meeting. We introduced the Clifford Moss team, Bonnie and Amanda, who will be working with us as we're planning for the potential of a new parcel tax, the renewal of Measure P, and exploring the potential facilities bonds that could support our school district moving into the future. We discussed initial work to prepare for those potential bond and parcel tax measures yesterday evening, and we're looking forward to meeting again on May 5th. Wanted to provide you with an update. Just before the spring break, Angela and I had a meeting with the president of Cabrillo, Laurel Jones, and the vice president of instruction, Kathy Welsh at Cabrillo. We discussed opportunities for collaboration with Cabrillo. We addressed the possibility of offering Cabrillo courses on our campuses again, and including potentially offering classes to our high school students during the day for concurrent enrollments. the support and with support to ensure that our students are transfer ready when they are at graduation. So, and also possibly offering some additional language classes, and if a student isn't testing transfer ready in 11th grade, some classes in their senior year that would support them with the sequence of courses they might take at Cabrillo as a freshman instead earlier. So some different possibilities. We also discussed ways that their teachers would benefit from learning from our teachers. The president was suggested that we might seek out some teachers that are interested in coming and sharing their knowledge and understanding of Common Core with the instructors at Cabrillo. There's some different possibilities. We're going to continue those conversations. Yesterday, or actually today and last week, we conducted interviews for the director of the SELPA. The SELPA is our governing system for our collaboration with the districts in the Northern County to serve our special needs students. And Harriet Maglin, the director, is retiring at the end of the school year. We have valued her leadership very much, and we look forward to bringing someone else into the SELPA director position who will support our districts as we move forward and continue to work to provide the best possible programs for our students with special needs.
Okay, thank you. Student reports.
Hi. I'm happy that we recognize our librarians too, because I feel like I've been in libraries my whole elementary school, middle school, and even still in high school. So I'm really happy that that is a thing. At SoCal, we're having our educational planning workshops for Cabrillo during our economy classes, and I think that's really helpful. Like, seniors are like really stressed out, and it's nice that they're not alone planning, going to Cabrillo. And also, our band and concert choir went to Los Angeles to compete, and concert choir got second place platinum. Our second jazz band got second place, which is silver, and our first jazz band got first place, gold. So we're really proud. So, thank you.
Thank you, and I too am really glad that we're recognizing librarians. Jolene, you're my librarian. You're incredible. AFE, which is our Alternative Family Education Program on the Bransford Small Schools campus, currently has 3 students headed to the State Science Fair competition in Los Angeles, and we're awaiting an update on that. Delta will be hosting prom this year for the alternative schools. However, AFE as well as Costanoa and Cypress are helping to fundraise and plan for the event. It will be on May 2nd, and it is masquerade ball themed. ARC, which is our independent studies program, their seniors will continue presenting their senior projects through May 20th. So that's a graduation requirement, so it's kind of a big deal. Monarch Community School, which is our elementary school downstairs, has started the Smarter Balance testing as well as AFE. Monarch also finished their Read to Achieve program, and awards were given out this past week. Was it this past week? And Monarch Community School had 30 students that participated more than 80% of the time, 12 students who increased their reading by more than 100,000 words this year, 3 students who significantly increased their word count, 1 by 57%, 1 by 79%, and 1 who increased her reading by 87%. Their goal for the total 9 weeks was to read 15 million words, and in the 9 weeks they together read 15,292,865 words. Goal. Bransford Small Schools campus as a whole will be hosting Dia de los Niños, which is International Children's Day, on April 25th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There will be a rummage sale, games, food, performances, etc. It will be a carnival-type atmosphere, and we'd like to invite all of you. Nancy has some extra flyers too with information on them. Branson 40 Small Schools will also be hosting a Bookshop Santa Cruz benefit, which is on Thursday, April 16th. And you can purchase books as well as grab pizza, because Pizza My Heart and the Penny Ice Creamery will be sponsoring the event as well. At 6 p.m. you can hear from author David Seltzer, and 15% of all purchases made will go to Branson 40 Small Schools Library. Costanona High School seniors are also working toward completing their senior projects, which is also a graduation requirement for them. Soccer and softball seasons have both started. Even our campus supervisor is our softball coach this year, and Carby, our primary math teacher, is our soccer coach this year. Our soccer team is undefeated thus far. They have won both of their games last week. Our softball team has a doubleheader this Friday to kick off our season. If anyone would like information about coming to watch the games, feel free to contact me. And Spirit Week is this week for Costanella as well. Today was Sports Day, tomorrow is Black and Yellow Day, and Friday is Backwards Day, which, like I said at the last meeting, the schedules will be reversed as well.
Thank you, students. The next item is approval of the minutes. We'll start with the minutes of the special closed session meeting on March 18th. Is there a motion? Allison moves approval. Second? Second. And Patty second. And is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 7. And the minutes for the regular meeting on March 25th.
Move approval.
Patty?
Submitted, so.
Yeah.
So
Second. And Sheila seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Student recommendations?
Abstain.
Abstain.
All right. The consent agenda is next. Are there any items that the board members would like pulled for discussion? Okay, is there a motion? Dee Dee moves. And second?
Second.
Sheila seconds. Any discussion? It's a roll call vote. Sarah, would you start?
Abstain.
Okay.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Sheila, did you leave your guess?
The Santa Cruz Ed Foundation donated $1,000 to each school within the district for libraries, support for outdoor school programs, and other uses as determined by individual sites.
What? Are we thanking them? We thank them. No. Okay. Report of action taken in closed session.
The Board of Trustees took action on certificated, classified, and management leaves, retirements, resignations, and appointments. Angela Meeker was appointed Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. The Board of Trustees heard an update and provided Assistant Superintendent Molly Parks with directions regarding the GSCFT negotiations for 2013-2014. The Board of Trustees heard an update and provided Assistant Superintendent Molly Parks with directions regarding the SCCCE negotiations for 2014-2015. We will be reporting back to closed session after our meeting.
Thank you. Our next item is the staff report, Common Core State Standards.
I'd like to invite Curriculum Director Jennifer Wildman up to introduce our librarians who will be presenting this evening on the Common Core State Standards and use of nonfiction texts.
I am happy to be here to present our teacher librarians to you. And as you've heard many people say so far tonight, they are often part of the heart of our schools. And as your curriculum director, I feel like it's very important that I tell you they are also the brain of our schools. So there's a number of bodies of research out there that show the impact of libraries on our students, and particularly their student achievement. So that librarians hold a very important position in our schools of great influence. And you will not find a harder working and a greater bunch of people than our own teacher librarians. So I'm very happy to introduce Martha Dyer and our librarians, who will talk a bit about the changing landscape of their work, which includes the changes that we've experienced with Common Core, a move to more nonfiction text, and lots of great things that are happening in our schools. Oh, we're experiencing technical difficulties.
No offense.
The librarians are here, we're okay.
Well, the Santa Cruz librarians presented at the California School Library Association, and we talked to other librarians about how we've been working with the new nonfiction and the new Common Core standards, how we're supporting the sites. And so we thought that we might like to share it with the board. And this is the presentation that I have presented to all the kids, all the science students at my site. So you get to see it in action. And we have some books to show you. These are some of the new nonfiction books that we were able to purchase with the Common Core funds. And you'll see the assignments that the science teachers gave their students. You'll see the format for the assignment and then some examples, student examples on the back that you can look at as we go. So, so this is the science department, and they have worked with me for the past 3 years, and we'll be showing you the progress of the program as it has progressed. And this is just an example of the collaboration that librarians do with teachers and with students to support what's going on at the school. So this is nonfiction for good health. This is the presentation that we show to students. So I talked to the students about Common Core standards and how these new standards are putting a greater emphasis on informational text and non-information reading. And by being able to read and comprehend, get more vocabulary acquisition, students are getting ready in a way that they haven't really before. So the new standards change the proportion of how much fiction and nonfiction is supposed to be read at the elementary, middle, and high school. So, just a little back on that arrow. This is a 5-minute presentation. I'll speed it up here. So, get the hint. So in the elementary, we're moving toward a 50-50 breakdown. At middle school, 60-40, and high school, 75-25. The blue nonfiction, green fiction. And I talked to the kids about what adults read and how in our day-to-day lives we have a lot of informational nonfiction reading to do. And so these are some of the examples that we talk about, so they can see that. And we also talk about how 4 minutes a day is about how much teenagers read in nonfiction on their own free time. And students feel much more comfortable with these elements of fiction, not so comfortable with the nonfiction elements. And so part of reading this assignment, which I'll talk about really briefly, is getting much more comfortable with the nonfiction elements that help kids read and understand nonfiction. So this guy Dewey, he came up with this breakdown, and so kids will be reading all these different kind of books under all the different sections of Dewey. So the nonfiction contest that we do at our school, and B40 is starting this as well, is the 6th graders. All the 6th graders read nonfiction, and the class that reads the most gets a party. And this really kind of promotes the reading of nonfiction. And so all the science classes come up and they all get books. So we go on to the next slide. And next slide. So this has been a breakdown of the program for the last 3 years. So this is the number of students participating. It's gone up from 39 to 377 for 7th graders in the last 3 years. And then the amount of reading they have done has gone up. In 8th grade, it's the same story. You can just see the continual growth of the participation and the amount of reading that students are doing over the last 3 years. And these are students who are realizing that reading nonfiction is not that bad. And they're enjoying it a lot more. And really, nonfiction books are changing. They're publishing much more engaging nonfiction books than they ever did before. And so that's really the exciting things, that they can actually ask for nonfiction books and want to read nonfiction.
And so this year, Santa Cruz City School District allocated Common Core money for all our libraries. Each site was given $5 per student, and teacher librarians purchased books, ebooks, audiobooks, and DVDs that will meet the standards of the Common Core. This money allowed us to update our age-sensitive nonfiction collections. It was the first time we've had a substantial budget to develop our collections in many years. And we really appreciated the opportunity to provide our teachers and students with an array of current and relevant resources that will support the Common Core curriculum. So thank you.
Are there any questions or comments? Edie?
Thank you so much for your presentation. I noticed that that ratio is 50-50 at the elementary level, and I've heard that even kindergartners and first graders are engaging with nonfiction texts. And I was wondering how, or who, is it the librarian teachers or is it the classroom teachers that are really scaffolding how you read a nonfiction text and the features that you have to pay attention to in terms of the graphs, and there's an index and there's a table of contents, and that kind of features of the text gives you a lot of information in addition to the actual text in the book. So how are we scaffolding our youngest readers to engage in these kinds of texts?
We'll have the elementary.
That's great.
Teacher librarian.
I'm Kathy Griffith. I teach library teacher at Westlake. I do a lot of that in my lessons with the kids, sharing with them those nonfiction books, sharing with them the table of contents, index, skills in alphabetizing, how to use an index, and hopefully by sharing those lessons with the kids, with the teachers there in the library, they use those lessons as well as in the classroom. But very simple books for the youngest kids, and keeping it at their age-appropriate development.
Anything else?
Thanks for the presentation. It was awesome, and congratulations for presenting at the conference as well. I just wanted to thank and honor, as a parent and as a trustee, the work that you do. My daughter has been a library aide at Harbor High for 2 years and wants to do it her senior year, and it has incorporated the skills that she's learned as a library aide into her resume, and has big hopes of getting a job at a bookshop someday. So I appreciate my kids have spent so much time in the libraries at lunch, and it's just great work that you do, so thanks.
Hint, hint. Nudge, nudge.
Sheila?
Okay, so I guess I just want a little reassurance from my Irish self about the fiction or literature aspect of what's going on. The Irish believe that the literary word encompasses the whole world and teaches you how to think and how to understand the world. And so when I hear nonfiction is being trumpeted, I worry about what we're losing. And I have a feeling that you guys are going to make me feel a lot better.
Veronica Daly here. Daly Zalea, from one Irish woman to another. We are trying to encourage an increase in nonfiction reading because, as I think Martha kind of displayed, the kids are really loving the fiction. And we probably, in some ways, preference always developing the current young adult fiction in our collections, or for elementary or younger kids, those fiction books, because we all love that and we know the importance of narrative knowledge and story and how very critical the skills with vocabulary building and critical thinking and developing empathy are with fiction. So do not worry.
And not only that, but the Irish did save civilization.
That's right.
But thank you for what you did.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Hi, Kathy. I'm wondering, this is a question for you. Do the kids, do the young students enjoy reading nonfiction?
I think we have a mix. I think when you work in an elementary school, you find students that are totally drawn to nonfiction and those other kids that come in and they can't get enough of fiction. So what I try to do in my lessons is a little bit of both. For example, if I do a lesson on butterflies, nonfiction, because that's so relevant to Santa Cruz and our monarchs, but to also tie in those wonderful books by Lois Ehlert that have the beautiful illustrations and storytelling along the lines of fiction, so they can see the poetry and the language and the beauty of fiction, as well as learning about the life cycle of a butterfly. It's really a trick in elementary school because we want to continue to build that love of reading for whatever genre, fiction, nonfiction, that kids enjoy, so that when they go on to middle school and high school, they know they are readers and they know they can be successful at reading. And that's really what I work on as an elementary school librarian, and to instill that joy of learning throughout their lives. Because I too get fearful of losing that fiction, being the Irish Welsh girl that I am. But I also recognize for some of our students that nonfiction is going to be the hook for them. And so making sure you blend all of that into your lessons is very important. Anyway, thanks for the question.
I have a very quick follow-up question. If you had to guesstimate, what length of time does your average second or third grader spend continuously reading nonfiction versus fiction? I mean, intuitively, I would think it's shorter periods of time, but I could be completely wrong. Do you have any sense of that? And if not, forgive the question.
No.
Okay, thanks.
I know they're reading, though, because we have these great teachers that are guiding kids and spending time with kids in the library, and kids check out their books, and I look around and I see these little groups of kids sharing books and being teacher and being librarian, and sometimes it makes me want to cry. But I don't, because they'd all laugh at me.
Thank you.
I have a question for the older grade levels. It's my understanding that the emphasis on nonfiction reading is to promote the development of nonfiction writing. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that transition from reading more nonfiction to engaging in writing more nonfiction.
My first thought is to say that all of this feels really new still. And when all the 6th grade, 7th graders, and 8th graders that came through, I would ask them, what do you feel more comfortable reading, fiction, nonfiction? Everybody, fiction, fiction, fiction. And I can tell by the quizzes, the mini-count quizzes, that they do so much better at the fiction than the nonfiction. This is all very new for them. And I feel like the writing is also new. And pairing them and having one feed into the other, I feel like we're developing more. So we'll find out.
And I could add at the high school that they've been required to do a lot of nonfiction writing for a long time.
And I think that now they're going to be exposed to a greater variety of styles and modeling in that nonfiction writing pursuit.
Excuse me, I have two questions in there. I'm short. Can you just give me an example of a nonfiction kindergarten book?
Snakes, sharks.
So just really those, do the kids, do they still gravitate to those world record book types in that age group? You know, those larger ones that way. And then the second is the technology layer with it. So you talked about some audiobooks and that you were able to purchase ebooks. Are we using them at a younger level for that layered in so that they can have both the audio and the visual as we're deciding what type of learner they are as they move forward?
Yeah, the district purchased a subscription to over 500 titles that are at all the elementary schools. And of those, about half of them or more are nonfiction? Yeah, so those can be read on a computer, a Kindle, an iPhone, any device. They can be read, they will read aloud. So they're real good. And please come and visit the libraries and we can show you some of that too. Or we can show you how to get it on your own Kindle or whatever.
Sheila?
Okay, so I think this is cheating. It's not about what you presented. But I'm curious. I'm hearing a lot about fan fiction. Do you guys know what that is? Mostly, I think, in more in high school. And I'm wondering if it is something that's showing up because it involves people writing and connecting their writing to, is it showing up in the schools? Is that something that?
Yes. Santa Cruz High School has a literary society group of kids that like to get together and talk about books and what they're reading. And a lot of them are into fan fiction. And it's interesting because they're into, fan fiction based on Jane Austen and, classic literature. And I think that they do a lot online around fan fiction with different websites and blogs and things too.
Does it seem to you like it's going somewhere with in terms of them?
Yeah, I keep hearing more about it. Right down to you asking tonight. It's something that I feel like I need to learn more about. I just barely started figuring out that it's a thing.
Any other comments or questions? Well, I'd like to thank you all, and I wanted to let you know that I work at Career College in the Early Child Education Department, and I was responsible for purchasing infant, toddler, and preschool nonfiction books. So maybe they'll come in now. That's right. Thank you so much. Okay, our next item is the Santa Cruz. I think there's some. Okay, we're going to hear about the Complete Streets Master Plan.
I'd like to welcome Jean Makosh, who's going to be presenting tonight. In February of 2015, the City of Santa Cruz published their Complete Streets Master Plan, which includes safe routes to school. And we appreciate you coming this evening to share this with us.
Just start talking, it'll pick you up in a minute.
All right, okay, there we go. Jeannie LePage actually was feeling ill, and so she wasn't able to be here, but she was immensely disappointed because this is her masterpiece. She really authored this, and she enjoyed it so much. But Ecology Action was our partner on this grant. My name is Cheryl Schmidt, and I'm the Transportation Coordinator in the Public Works Department of the City of Santa Cruz. And I have with me our partner, Piet Cannon, who manages the transportation programs at Ecology Action. So the city received approximately, $175,000 from Caltrans to study all 10 of our Santa Cruz City schools and take a look at how children are getting to school and what obstacles they may have in their transportation. And our vision for children getting to school is based on complete streets. Complete streets are streets that serve everyone in our community, not just children walking and bicycling. It's called 8 to 80, ages 8 to 80 is a complete street that serves everyone, whether you're driving or using the bus, walking, bicycling, scootering, skating, that you have options and you can do so safely. Thanks. So the process, it was a 2-year process creating this document. We started out with 2 large community meetings, one at Harvard High, one at Santa Cruz High, where we invited the community to come. We had large maps, people discussed what issues they're having with transportation in Santa Cruz. And then we went to each individual school site. We met with the administrators, faculty, students, parents, and got down to the nitty-gritty of what is going on at each of the schools, what safety issues they may have, what access issues they may have. And again, we had maps there so that we could document comments. Thanks. We also had surveys of parents, surveys of children. So in the classroom, we would ask kids, how did you get to school today? And they'd give us a show of hands if they walked, if they biked, if they carpooled, if their parent drove them to school. And then we asked the parents, what are the barriers to you allowing your child to walk or bicycle to school? And of the 10 schools, all 10 of them, the number 1 reason was safety, safety of intersections and crossings for their children. The number 2 reason is distance. It's just too far for their child to walk or bike to school. And the 3rd reason, it was tied, violence and crime, the speed of traffic, and the amount of traffic. Next. So after we compiled all of this information, and if you take just a quick look at here, you will be amazed. This is a data-rich document. Incredible amount of data in here. So we compiled all of this data, and we came up with a matrix of projects, infrastructure projects, that could make walking and bicycling easier and safer. There were 160 projects for all 10 schools, and a very rough cost estimate of $18 million if we were going to actually complete all of those projects. And it's a wide range of projects. Some of them are very easy, inexpensive, and others of them are larger projects that would take more time and money. Next. So each school has their own section in this document, and that's where you really can drill down into the crash history at each site, where children live within their school zone, and so that we can see how far they need to travel, the parent surveys, the student surveys, and just an analysis of what the transportation landscape is in each school. Thanks. So this is an interesting map that was produced by our GIS coordinator at the City of Santa Cruz. And this is a heat map. The red zone is the highest concentration of student residences. And as you go out from there to the green is the lowest concentration of student residences. And so it's interesting to see with the 4 elementary schools shown there that in the highest density of residences we don't actually have an elementary school at that location. So each school also has a map to make it easier to
just quickly see what the recommendations are, where they're located, and what type of an improvement project that would be. And then Ecology Action provided for Public Works a matrix in Excel that makes it easy for the engineering staff to sort all of this data by categories, whether it's cost, whether it's public opinion about projects, just various ways that we can sort the data for compiling grant applications for funding. So that's what we're doing next, is we are writing a grant application for the Active Transportation Program. We will draw heavily from this document. It will be a pedestrian safety project that will benefit all 10 schools, so we're pulling projects from each school. It's going to be a very robust grant application for pedestrian crossings, safety for walking to school. And there will be a non-infrastructure component to this grant application, and I thought maybe Piet could talk to that a little bit, because we do want to involve Santa Cruz City Schools with this.
Just quickly, my name is Piet Cannon from Ecology Action, and we have quite a few what's called Safe Routes to School programs to get kids to bike and walk safely and to bike and walk more often to school. So we would complement the infrastructure improvements by having some things as like hands-on walking safety training for students, and then also encouragement programs such as, what's very popular is the bike and walk to school day, which is twice a year. We've been doing it at selected schools once a year, and we have actually more intensive programs that encourage kids to bike and walk through incentive programs and technology and things where they can count their trips and see the benefits, for the environment, for their health, and other benefits. So those are some of the assortments of programs that we would put in with the infrastructure improvements. So one of the things that we're here today is to kind of open up that conversation. So as we go through the funding sources, get the school's input at the start of the process rather than at the end of it, and say, these are the school programs we picked for you, and I hope that that's okay with you, because it's a deadline-driven process.
I do want to add that it's been a pleasure working with Santa Cruz City Schools and on all of the principals of the schools, the students. I've worked for the city for 28 years, a long time, and I've done a lot of Safe Routes to School projects over the years. And working with the schools is always very rich. It's very personal, and I get good feedback. So it's been my pleasure to work with Santa Cruz City Schools, and I hope that we can get a successful grant application and we can continue a good program.
Thank you. Sheila, any question?
Well, a comment and then a question. I was really impressed with. I was impressed with the small thing we got, and then to look at this, really very impressive. And I know, having worked on the downtown commission, how much work this takes and how many cats you have to herd. So I'm really very appreciative and thankful for this document. And by the way, that map that showed where all our children were and where all our schools were was the single most mind-blowing thing to me when we were going through the natural bridges process. And still, I think it's something that we have to figure out what to do about it. It's a major problem. So my question is, what exactly at this point are you asking us for in terms of grant?
Well, I'm thinking, of course, Public Works will put together an infrastructure grant application, and that will be the bulk of the funding for pedestrian crossing improvements. But there will also be probably an education and encouragement component that Ecology Action and County Health Services will participate with. So perhaps we can think about bike safety education. We can think about the walking school bus program again, which was popular but didn't get enough legs to continue, according to them. those sorts of programs, we'd love to have your support and endorsement for going forward with those with the schools.
So you just kind of need an ongoing connection with us in terms of things you develop before you tell the grant people is what we want, basically.
Yeah, and we just want to make sure that what we're doing and the sorts of programs that we're providing are really helpful and useful to the schools. So we want to partner with you.
I'm just curious what criteria you are using to decide which of those many projects you think would be the first grab for seeking funding.
Pedestrian projects are really the most complete streets projects because they truly do serve ages 8 to 80. And pedestrians, the smallest, youngest child is a pedestrian. And then secondary school students are also pedestrians. Bicycling projects are a little bit more difficult sometimes and serve a niche. But that's why we're kind of focusing on the pedestrian projects. And it spills out into the greater community and into the neighborhoods and has a benefit there as well.
So if I could just ask a follow-up, one of the criteria then that you're using is the impact in terms of the number of people that will be impacted by the changes that are made.
Yeah, the broadest positive impact.
Okay, thank you.
Patty?
I think that's Allison.
I was wondering about interventions, things to do on busy streets that might not be close to a school, but is definitely a route to school. And I'm also thinking there's an added complication because Harbor High kids are actually coming through Live Oak. They're not even in the city of Santa Cruz. So like Chanticleer Avenue, 17th Avenue, they're very busy streets. I mean, is there any plans for increasing, like even route signs, even if they're not close to a school, to remind folks to slow down? Or
Well, that's an excellent example of the education component. We can't fix everything everywhere, and educating students how to navigate,
How to find a safe route.
how to look for what they need to look out for. And Ecology Action just through the years has always done a very good job with that. But route signage is less of a safety issue. It's more of an amenity. But again, directional information is something that can be done educationally, not necessarily with that infrastructure. So the grant application that we're putting together wouldn't necessarily involve signage, regional signage. Although I can say that there are actually 2 other programs going on completely separate from this that have to do with signage, regional signage.
Thank you.
How does your work dovetail into the proposed bike lane along the railroad tracks, and would that have some effect on students going to school?
The rail trail is hugely important regionally and within the city of Santa Cruz. It's going to provide an off-street facility that'll be safe for 8 to 80. And amazingly, we're going forward with it pretty quickly, which is phenomenal, that we may actually see this happen sooner rather than later.
Follow-up question to that. I hear may not be totally relevant, but when you say going forward with it, do you mean in the Davenport area stretch, or are we literally looking at within the city of Santa Cruz going forward with it?
Section 7 within the city of Santa Cruz is funded. We're in design right now.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Hey, Sheila.
Okay, that brought up another question for me. Section 7?
Yeah, segment
What's
7.
that?
That's right? Segment 7.
So it goes from the foot of the wharf west through the neighborhoods out towards Natural Bridges Avenue where it ends.
And that's already funded to be
That's
funded.
Okay. So my other question is just a small question. When you ask parents what were the concerns they had that made their decision, did you give them a list or did you ask them?
We just asked them.
All right. I just was surprised that nothing came up about unwillingness of kids to go to school or well, you know, not getting up in the morning or anything like that. Because I was thinking that's a whole other project we could run on. But they didn't say that, so that's good.
If you look in the appendix of the report, we included every single comment. So it's very interesting. You can read the actual comments in the report.
Yeah.
I just want to comment and thank you for the comprehensive report. I read it when it came online. You know, you sent it over, which was great. And the information is valuable at many, many levels. And I'm happy to have the collaboration. I do, along with the Irish, since my name is Patty, want to say something that my 18-year-old son reminds me of constantly, because I said, I was in traffic, and he said, Mom, you are traffic. So it always helps me to remind myself that part of the solution to the problem is to not be the problem. I must fully disclose I drove here today.
Thank you very much.
You know, Cheryl, you could reach out to me, and we can talk about what you need and next steps. We really appreciate the collaboration and the support of our kids and our families. So just think about what we need to do to help you get the grant together.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next item is 3.3, impact resulting from large elementary populations.
So this evening I want to welcome 3 of our elementary principal teams. Clyde Curley would be here, but there's an event at Westlake tonight. I was hoping to get here maybe before we wrapped up, but it doesn't look like we're hoping that they're having a good event. This evening our elementary principals are going to talk about the impact and need that results from having large elementary schools, and I'll share with you what that looks like on the ground every day, and thank you for being here this evening.
Okay, I'm Jose Quevedo, the principal at De La Vega Elementary. And this is the presentation. There's 7 slides, so bear with us. And my colleagues here will add as we go over them. So just to give you some background information, Bayview, De La Vega, Galton, Westlake were built to serve 1,700 students. But over the years, Santa Cruz City Schools has added 49 portables to increase capacity to 2,187 students. But for this school year, the enrollment has increased. So the 4 schools, we have a total of 2,239 students. So there's some impact, significant impact, once we start to bring more portables, once we start to expand on our schools.
So I'm Anne Mariah Hernandez, the principal at Galt Elementary, and we are the smallest school of the 4 elementaries. But one of the things I can talk to you about the footprint of our site is that when the portables were added to our site, we lost our volleyball court, we lost a huge amount of our field, and some track areas. So our playground area has been greatly reduced based on adding portables and going over the capacity of our main building.
I'm Marianne Robb. I'm principal at Bayview Elementary. The next bullet on the slide is the instructional leadership at the the community building that is happening. I was at an event again tonight. I just came from my home PTA meeting. You have a meeting last night and again another one tonight. The community is so important. Community building is such an important part of our schools, and we do it willingly, but it's an undertaking. Any initiatives, observations, the supervision and observations and support for our staff. I personally supervise over 75 employees, 24 classroom teachers, but then with resource teachers and both, so we all have similar caseloads, and it's how that time is so important and so critical to get in classrooms, and to have those important conversations and really wonderful conversations with our own staff.
So, having said that, we also have to look at the student impact, not only our leadership with staff members and at our sites and support personnel, but there's reduced student access to centrally provided resources such as art, music, office of coordinator supervision, instructional services including intervention and counseling support, and custodial services. Just to give you an example, when it comes to counseling support, De La Vega Elementary, we have 650 students, and we share our part-time counselor with Westlake. So she's full-time for the district, but she's part-time with me. So the ratio of that support is 1 to 650 students.
So I'm looking at instructional leadership and reduced opportunity to support site-based committees. So the larger your school is, the more committees you'll have for different things, as well as larger parent population, needing to meet multiple times. At a site like Galt, it's a very diverse site, so there's multiple meetings, different languages, things like that. So as the administrator, you're spread very thin in terms of where you're trying to get, what meeting you're trying to set up for, let alone get into a classroom to observe what's going on. And then that also is true for your community coordinator, who's really spread thin at a site. And then one of our sites doesn't have one. And again, I can actually keep speaking to the walkthrough is observation of student learning. Again, it's just one being trying to get into all those places makes it pretty complicated. And that's where the important work is, getting in the classroom and seeing what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. I already mentioned evaluations of certificated and classified staff. And he'll say, he says one custodian. We all have one office staff, a part-time attendance clerk, a part-time community coordinator, part-time health clerk, and whether that's spread between 450 or 650 students, it's still one person. And so that's a lot of stuff. And again, we already spoke to parent education and community building, very important. We run positive parenting classes, we have our home and school clubs, we have our ELACs, we have lots of parent needs, which is important.
And also the connectedness with the students that we serve. It's great when we know them by name. It's great when we get to see them and get to see their progress, even get to not only their scores, but their social emotional development in the classroom or outside in the playground. So it gets a little tougher when we have all the private schools. So some of the recommendations that we're mentioning here is to determine a base level for all schools and all students. And they're listed out: intervention coordinator, counselor, are 50 minutes per week for grades 3 to 5th all year, and for kinder to second grade after a year. Right now, we share a music teacher between Galt and use our example. So he gets to visit our site every other week. So our students get exposed half the year every other week to a music program. Third grade, sorry. Library, life lab, custodian, secretary, health clerk, attendance, principal. So there's got to be a starting point to fulfill it. So, more recommendations.
Okay. So again, allocating the FTE based on student enrollment, so kids get equal access to these wonderful programs.
Right.
Yeah, extra sessions are these that we just did. Interventions needs based on achievement again. Our resource, our walk to read, our after school interventions, and support services, other support services needed based on enrollment. And again, an example of recommendations, use a small school, for example, Galt, what is the level of support at Galt, and scale it up to the larger schools is one way to look at perhaps a solution to the problem. 2 full-time custodians for 19 classrooms and 400 students. De La Vega has 30 classrooms and 650 students. So again, that requires one solution is a higher FTE. I know that our nightly vacuum schedule is in thirds, so every classroom gets vacuumed every 3 nights. It's the only way you do it. It's just a tremendous amount of work. And then something comes up, and that whole schedule does get impacted quite greatly. De La Vega should like to receive an additional custodian, for example, and that applies to all of our certainly the site secretaries are tremendously impacted. They, boy, try to sit beside them for a day, and it's crazy. It's amazing they get anything done. And today the purchasing deadline was kind of crazy, but they are amazing people. But certainly the more people, the more kids running in, they're walking in late, they have all kinds of needs on top of the management of the site. I did want to say one thing I didn't get in our slideshow. We do a lot of after-school programs as well. I know MRI has students at her school until 6 o'clock every day. What do you have, about 250 people in your after-school program, students? 200. 200 between El Sistema and ACES. We at AVU have a after-school ACES program which serves about 90 students every day. All of our sites have a whole plate of after-school enrichment classes that are largely run by our parent clubs, but still we have students there from 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock, and it's a long day. So, thank you.
Comments or questions?
Thank you. I really was impressed by the information you gave us, because I think that we left ourselves hanging with overcrowded schools. And those are you guys that got left hanging. I guess I have a couple questions. I know that there are many school districts that have larger elementary schools, and it can be argued that we are safe, known, and challenged because we don't have as large. But if we are trying to make that decision as to when we tolerate large and when we don't, do you have a sense of a cutoff point at which you would say this is impossible? That in other words, we would need to be thinking about when we consider it a reasonable cutoff point because a school costs a lot from our budget. But do you three have a sense of that? I have two questions, that's one.
Okay.
Do you have
Well, I don't necessarily have a number. I can tell you what it's like to work with a population of 650 students, and it's pretty difficult. Whether I think 400 is better than 600, well, yeah, anything smaller than what we have right now would certainly support us. But I'm not necessarily sure if you're looking for a specific number.
No, I'm not really. I'm just trying to get an idea from you guys because you're there. Like, would you, sitting there, say 650 is the point at which, if I could say it, I would go for it? Or do you have an idea as to how close you are to that?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty sizable amount of students. I'm very happy if I have 670 or 690. That doesn't diminish really my impetus to get up in the morning and go serve them. I'd certainly benefit, like I said, if the numbers might be smaller. So I don't know if I answered your question. Maybe Amarai has the haircut back.
Well, I'm at a site that is smaller in terms of population of students and staff, and I do feel that I have the opportunity to learn more students' names, spend time with them. Being at a smaller school gives you a different kind of community feeling. It feels more like a family. You're tighter, you know students, teachers know each other's students across the hall, just simply because we're a smaller school. And so I don't know exactly if there's a cutoff number, but I'll say we're in the 420 range. The 500 range, you start to feel big.
And I would say, if you had to pick a magic number, it'd be under 500 students. I feel a big difference as I get closer to 600. We're about 570 right now in Bayview, and at as low as 520, and it definitely feels different.
Yeah. So my second question would be, what if you're looking at this as, well, we don't have another school coming on right away, so what can we do that would help the situation? Is there any sense of priorities in what you said? Like, are there some things that would help more than others?
One of the things that I can reflect on were my last 4 years at Ramsey 40 Middle School, in which we had 420 to 440 students with 2 administrators and a full-time counselor. And that was impactful for our students. That I can attest to. So maybe additional support in that way. certainly a full-time counselor every day on my side would totally help.
I'd say in the area of personnel, looking at custodial, because keeping up with a facility of that size as well, and multiple classrooms, and then as well as counseling, and as we said, some assistance probably with secretarial work and things like that, because the more enrollments, the more immunization, all those things you have to do.
Yeah, and again, I would agree with the colleagues. You know, one thing, you know, more students, more, you know, we attend IEPs, and so it's just more all of those extra meetings. That's one thing that didn't get mentioned before, but certainly office staff would help, custodial staff would help, but counselor would be huge too. I mean, yeah, full-time would be amazing, and you know, the half-time counselors that we have, I'm so grateful for. They have changed my life. I mean, truly, it's been wonderful. And this life of many students, exactly.
Is there a point at which you say we have to have more administration? Or
I will decline it if I'm offered one.
Okay, Dee Dee, you're next. Thank you for your presentation. I'm in favor of this base level idea, just to provide equity across the campuses based on population of students. But I also wonder if there's a way that you can tailor some of that to the different programmatic needs at each school site and the uniquenesses of each school site. For example, De La Vega has the two-way immersion program. Galt has a very diverse, high proportion of Spanish-speaking parents. So are there ways in which that could be kept in consideration as you're trying to create equity in terms of resources across the campuses?
Yeah, I think that's really important, you know, and again, as you mentioned yourself, like the two-way immersion program, that's two whole programs with their, it's, you know, not unlike the situation you have in small schools or whatever, where you're running multiple programs in multiple school communities is huge. Again, a large Spanish-speaking community with the ELACs and translation, it's absolutely, it is huge. MRI is every bit as busy as all of us, really, but.
That's it. And also looking at program, I think, is important, as well as looking at sites that run until 6 o'clock with students. So you're looking at not just, I think the number is really important, and it has a huge impact, obviously, but also looking at programs and needs for specific sites. So it's kind of a combination, I think.
Okay.
My question is somewhat along the lines, and it has a few tiers to it, and it's mostly to think about when offering about the tailoring, so I really do like the thought of the formulated piece, but I'd also like to know, what is the California state average size of elementary schools? And if we have models to look towards, and what sort of support their tax base allows them to offer. So we would say we have a similar situation of demographics in the state of this school, and they're at 650 students, and what is expected in California in educating. And then I'd also like to see some sort of tiered system for the volume. So, you know, yes, the needs at 500 will be one, but at 550 may tip you into a different volume. And because our schools are such community centers, you know, they're not just serving just our students from those times. Along with the meetings, we have all sorts of community on them and what it's going to take from a classified piece for us to really respect our schools, so that when our students come back to them and you come back to them in the morning, they are our schools again. And so I don't know that that's really a question. I'm just hoping to layer that into what Dee Dee was saying, but also something to think about for staff as we move forward, because these are the needs for the decisions. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thanks very much for the presentation. This was really helpful information. I think that if you want to solve a problem well, you have to know the problem well and then move to solutions. And so what I heard consistently through every slide was about resource allocation, about we're stretched too thin. We can't. So the proposal to look really at numbers and then maybe move from kind of base numbers and analysis of number of students to counselors, to administrators, to yard supervision. And then on top of that, layers for programmatic issues around hard-to-serve populations, how can we move from there? But this feels like a good starting place to really look at how resources are allocated. It just really doesn't make sense to think that we have these school boxes and we're going to put one of each, regardless of the number of students and the amount of need. So thanks, it was very helpful, and I think it's a good, step towards a solution to the problem.
Sheila?
I'm just wondering if we can, is there a way we could get some information about other schools of similar size and how they have solved it? How they have solved the problem?
Every district is different, and schools are built to house different amounts of students in different districts. You have high schools of 4,000, you have elementary schools of 1,000, you have elementary schools of 100. And it's diverse across the state, so I don't know that there is a norm. We could, Jim and I can talk a little bit about finding out what's happening in different, what's happening in some different places, some school districts that are more our size, that have schools that are built more like ours. It's not an easy task to sort that out.
Right, and I don't know if it's too much to even ask for, but I was thinking of it not so much that we would find somebody like us, but that we may find some solutions that we haven't thought of, or some ways of thinking about it that would be helpful. So I don't know, it's the task itself may be too great, but I just thought I would ask.
Yeah, are there any other comments or questions?
I'd like to seriously ask the board to reconsider reopening natural bridges. This seems to be a time in the school's history when we most drastically need another school to alleviate the tremendous pressure that these people are under. And I would respectfully ask you to reconsider that, because I think this is the time when we really need to do that. Thank you for listening.
Sheila, do you have another question? Really? Oh, sorry. No. Okay. Thank you for bringing this information forward. It's information that we've been asking for, and it's really helpful. Thank you so much.
And I want to thank you for listening. Thank you.
Okay, our next item, 3.4, is the Personnel Commission Annual Report. Clearing the house, Try not to take it personally. Don't take it personally. They don't know what they're missing. We just needed a better title, maybe. So I'd like to introduce to you Beth Summers, who is our Director of Classified. And as you know, we are a Personnel Commission district, and much of Beth's time is spent on the Personnel Commission, on merit rules, and making sure that our classified personnel are being treated as they need to be treated, hired as we need to be hired, and following the rules to ensure that we are fairly working through our system and allowing our employees to be as successful as we need them to be and as they want to be. So that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Molly. The Personnel Commission, has been existing for many, many years, and a lot of you are familiar, and I welcome any of you school board members coming to one of our meetings. They're typically a lot shorter than your meetings. But Patty and Dee Dee have both visited, and that's been great to have them there. I actually have the chair of our Personnel Commission, Mark Violante, is back here, and he's here tonight, and Dr. Logson has served for several years as a Personnel Commissioner as well. So it is a commission of 3 people. We are charged with maintaining the merit system rules in conjunction with the classified contract, and just making sure that we're following what we've agreed to follow, what our rules are, and that these are administered fairly and equitably. I'm not going to go through the whole report. You all have a copy here, and I meant to run it two-sided, and it didn't come two-sided, and I thought, I'm not going to waste paper and run another set two-sided, so that's why you have them stapled together instead of a trifold brochure, which is what this report was originally designed to be. Every year, and this is generally done in January, but because we were unable to get a quorum for a few months in the early part of the year, we weren't able to complete our report and improve it until last month, which is why it's coming so late to the board this year. We outline the activities that we do, and our primary focus, what I spend the vast majority of my time on, is recruitment and hiring. From when a vacancy comes up, because somebody leaves, retires, whatever, as well as new positions that are created, and maintaining job descriptions, making sure that they're as up to date as possible, and that's a huge job because ours are really outdated and the whole thing needs to be done, so I do bits and pieces what I can. But just making sure that we're keeping all of those things up to date. We maintain the salary structure. You guys decide how much the employees are going to be paid, but we determine the relationship of where jobs fit in the hierarchy. So that's pretty much how we spend our time. There's a little summary in here of the activities like promotions, leaves of absence, separations, reclassifications, recruitments, regular appointments, exempt appointments. We hire substitute classified employees. There's a lot of activity that goes on in our office. And you can see those numbers compared to previous years in this report. One of the things that I really like about this report, and I inherited the format, so I haven't changed it since I came, is that we really list, we want to recognize our new employees, name them, and just know who they are, and so we've done that here. And also to recognize people who have been part of our organization and we've promoted, so there's another section for that. And I really like being able to do that. I really enjoy working with the Personnel Commission and working with the Human Resources Department and Molly's team over there too. And so if you have any questions about the report, I'll try to answer them.
Any questions or comments?
Just a quick question, I'm sorry, I'm not following protocol. Beth, how many personnel commissions are there in the state of California that you know of?
Oh, I think there's 62, something like that. Yeah, there's 62 throughout California.
Just a comment for those at AS. It's very interesting to go. You can learn more about the district through it, and I am happy that we serve those who serve us by having this commission. So it helps to bring a balance to what we do at city schools. I'm appreciative. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it has a good purpose in that HR has a function and the Personnel Commission has a function, and you don't have the same person making, like when Molly's involved, let's say in an employee discipline issue, the Personnel Commission is an independent body that person can come to because they've already maybe dealt with Molly on something, and it's just a process that, we can collaborate, but we can also provide 2 points of view, and I think in some ways that's a really helpful thing.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work. Okay, we have a resolution. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm Mark Dillon, I'm a Personnel Commissioner. Thank you, Beth. She's done a wonderful job, and I think she's going to continue to be a real asset of our schools. One of the things I like to point out into this annual report here is if you look down and look at regular appointments in the square box down there, in 2000, we had a part-time employment, a full-time of 34 and a part-time of 89. I know Beth works really hard trying to fill those part-time positions. It's very difficult to get somebody in there just for part-time. I know that we've been trying to work on that, and I think the school board should take a look at that and maybe try to combine positions so that we end up with some full-time people or people with benefits. It's like a churning thing. It's constantly turning people over and over again, and we wouldn't like that. We like people to come stay, enjoy the school district, work for us, and stay here. And I think that's one of the detriments is that when you have 89 people who are part-time, they're actually looking for full-time people or full-time jobs. And I think that's a thing to look at. So I just wanted to make that point. And Beth's doing a wonderful job, and her job's really tough. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is 3.5. It's a resolution, classified layoffs.
So, my voice has been wavering all week. Even with Chris's cough drops here. I have in front of you a resolution of a reduction of classified services, and this is nothing to celebrate by any means or nothing to, what it is it's a time and space right now that we're looking at. And you can see on there every year we try to get this list smaller and smaller and smaller. The process that we go through to get here is we meet with each site and we discuss what classified people they have there, how they're funded, will that funding continue? And for those folks that are funded out of donation accounts, we ask every single school, can you give us some assurance that this money will be available next year? We were able to take 2 people off this list by one school being able to do that. The other school said, we're fundraising still right now. I can't do it. And so we can't, the funding's just not secure at this point to go on. Most of the people that are hired under this understand that. Most of them continue to stay in these donation-funded positions because they want to stay at the school, and they know that this just happens. Doesn't mean it's okay. It's just kind of the reality. The other pieces on here, the learning assistants, are on here because we are building a new job description, which will be more accurate of what these folks are actually doing. As part of our PBIS program, we have some behavior supports for students. They're not one-on-one aids. They are there at the sites to support groups of students to teach social skills in real time. I can give you the best example of, I had a student at Galt who struggled every morning. It was hard coming because of things that happened all night and in the morning. And by this person simply checking in for 30 minutes, it just filled him up. And he was ready to go for the day. And before this was really difficult. But what happens with them being learning assistants is it really takes a special person to do that job. And so we want a job description that's going to honor the work that needs to happen. So that's why those folks are on here. I think I covered it.
Yes, so just to clarify, those 4 learning assistant positions are changing. They're going to be reestablished at that behavioral support level, that job description that includes behavioral support.
Molly, in the best case scenario, how soon might some of these people be hired back?
So most PTAs will have their final meeting end of May, beginning of June. And so we hope to get the funding by that time to let folks know that the position will be continued. Now, again, it's the position, it's not the person, right? So some of these folks, if there's openings, might have an option to take another job at another school. Depends on how all the bunking happens, which Beth will be working on starting tomorrow.
Molly, in the switch from the learning assistant to instructional technician, are the job qualifications such that people will be able to apply, move into those positions?
They'll have to apply.
Okay.
And so it depends on each person that are in that will be laid off. Well, depends on what their skills are and if they're qualified. But that would be our hope. But again, we want to make sure we've got the right people in those positions because we've had a few cases that hasn't been that someone is bumped in there and it wasn't the job they were expecting to do, nor did they maybe have the skills to do it.
So it's a matter of, it doesn't require more training or
It does. In fact, you can talk a little bit about that. It does require, it is a different job, but some people would have those qualifications. It depends on the individuals.
What I would say is that a learning assistant position is a very entry-level paraprofessional. So somebody can get that job with very little experience. Maybe they've been a volunteer in their child's classroom or something like that. Really an entry level. The instructional technician positive behavior support, really, part of the requirement is that you have experience working with children and preferably with some students with behavioral issues. We also have in place for those positions some structured training that the special ed department has been able to do. What you have when you have an entry-level person, when you're trying to hire an entry-level person to do something that's a little bit more demanding, that person may or may not be successful with that, and you really can only evaluate people based on the job description. And none of those functions are included in that job description. So what we really needed to do is say, what do we need these people to do with these children? And the learning assistant description did not cover it. So some of our learning assistants have great experience. Some of them are truly entry-level people, and they'd be a wonderful learning assistant, helping in classrooms, supporting instruction and those kinds of things. But this is maybe above them. So they will have to apply and qualify and go through that. They will not just be moved into those positions.
That's really helpful, totally.
And some other folks, that are learning assistants that are looking to grow into a higher position that has the experience, they may be interested in applying for those, even if they're not part of this layoff.
Okay, so to continue on that thinking, I think it probably would have helped me to be able to see the new description and the old description in making this decision because it would make it easier to understand. I think I understand what you're talking about. But is it going to be a requirement for a specific kind of skill training and proof of skill, or is it, I'm just flooded thinking about people who have capabilities with children who perhaps don't fit into the newest thing that we put out there for how do you deal with a child when they do X, Y, and Z. And I'm worried about what is that, but like what are they being asked for? what do they have to have that is different from what they had before, other than it being entry level? In terms of, if you're talking about people having more experience with children, I can't imagine learning assistants don't have that.
Someone applying for a learning assistant, Sheila, so someone applying for a learning assistant maybe doesn't, but they would be considered possibly for that position. They wouldn't be considered for this new position.
Okay, so these people would have, but you're saying because we want to redefine it, we want to be able to make that whole adjustment. The people that have the experience would move over.
Possibly if they apply.
And people who don't wouldn't. If I got that right.
They wouldn't be qualified, correct.
Okay.
Right. And there are some specific criteria that that need to be met, and they are in the job descriptions, but I'd be happy to forward those job descriptions to you.
That would be helpful.
Some of it is, a learning assistant is really set up to come in and, classroom teacher says, can you sit down and help this group read this book or complete this assignment, or really doing things under the direction of the teacher. Whereas this person is really going to be asked to assist in implementing behavior plans for students that have behavior plans, and to target specific behaviors using the strategies that the teacher wants them to use instead of, we aren't expecting these people to come in and design behavior plans. This is definitely a support position.
but we do want them to understand the elements of a behavior plan, and how to support the classroom in that, and those kinds of things.
So it's not special ed level, it is the positive behavior intervention.
Correct.
With the response to intervention.
It's really a prevention piece, you know, like the example I gave you of that student. You know, he's not a special ed student, but, you know, behaviors were getting in the way of his learning. So how can we help the student so he can stay in the classroom and learn? And that's what this...
I mean, I don't know that there's any answer to what I'm concerned about really, but I mean, I've seen learning assistants who in their natural way have done exactly. I'm worried about our lowest income people. Are they being given a chance to prove what they can do in this system? Because I've seen people be able to effect change with children. And I worry, I would like to be able to keep all the learning assistants and have positive behavior people in my group. You know, I would prefer that. But without that, I'm just wanting to make sure that it's that there's a recognition of those skills within the people we have.
Well, and there are certain positions, you know, the learning assistant is certainly the entry-level position, and it's generally not working with special ed. It's generally working in things like walk to read, sometimes with English learners, those kinds of things. It's generally general education. Then most of our instructional text, which is a little bit higher level and requires a little bit more independence and a little bit more. So there is a ladder for people like that. Yeah. And then the behavior support is just slightly above that one because they're expecting a little bit more. So for example, a likely person to promote into the behavioral support position would be one of our instructional techs who maybe has worked in a special education classroom, and that might be a logical next step.
So is it fair to say that essentially we're seeing this need over here, which is kind of a high level need, and less of this need down here? So we're redefining it in that way? Because you're now defining it as kind of being one level up.
Sheila, would it help if we did a follow-up with you on this particular position, and we're able to sit down and look at the job description side by side, outside
yes, and I can leave it for now. But I think in general, when we have to vote on something like this, it would be helpful to have the information before we voted. Because I think that's where I'm kind of stuck. I have to vote on something now that I kind of understand. And I really appreciate your descriptions because I think they're good. But if I could see it and figure out what questions I had ahead of time, it would help. So.
I have a question regarding this newly designed position or job description in terms of the compensation that would that change? And if there's a change in the compensation level for these individuals with this new job description, is that going to reduce the number of folks?
These positions are not funded by donations.
Particularly for those
funded by special education and so that's different.
Positions are not funded by donations.
It is not to reduce the number of hours because Medi-Cal has made a commitment to fund four 15-hour positions, one at each elementary school, and they realize that there is a difference in cost. So Medi-Cal is going to be able has agreed to fund that. The job description was developed before I got here, so it's at least 2 years old, and we've got some individuals already working in this job description in our SAIL program over at Harvard High School. So it's an existing job description. Because of it was determined at the time that this job description was developed that it was one range higher than a regular instructional technician position because of the higher level behavioral management skill that was required.
And then one more follow-up question. So that means some of these sites will have this new position and learning assistants available, potentially if they have donations.
We have learning assistants at all our elementary schools that aren't on here because they're not slated for layoffs. So they're not included in this, right? So the instructional techs or the learning assistants that are not special ed or Medi-Cal, those are the four that we're talking about. The other ones are donations, so those are those parent-funded positions that we talked about before.
These are not Medi-Cal.
The Medi-Cal,
And so mine is just for a point of clarification for funding. I read this, so you've answered it to the Medi-Cal will continue to fund as we've changed this job description, but will we still have special ed funding coming into the new job description for these 4 positions?
I think it's all coming out of Medi-Cal next year.
Okay, so then no special ed dollars will be following that, though they were previously at the tech level.
At the instructional tech level, so someone who's assisting in a special ed classroom is an instructional tech, not a learning assistant.
Okay, so it just takes care of that right there anyway. Okay, thank you.
Mark spoke to the issue of part-time versus full-time. I see these are all 3 hours a day. Does classified have a position on combining any of these? For example, you see a 3-hour day at Westlake and another 3-hour day at Westlake. 3 and 3 still make 6, and so then you're at a level where someone would qualify for health benefits, et cetera, et cetera. Does classified have a position? Thank you.
I think I can talk about it. Of course, we have a position on it. We would like to combine those jobs and give benefits. And I further am encouraged when I'm hearing that no special ed money is going to these positions, although you previously used special ed money. So the way I calculate things is, hey, there's money. Let's pay the benefits with the money. That's what I would like to see. I'm glad that you asked about the continued funding because I was too confused about it. It's like, wait, you're on the layoff list because we don't have money, but now we're going to give them more responsibility. This happens year after year. We get these layoff notice, reduction in hours, and it's heartbreaking, really. And I don't know if you want me to go into that now, Jeremy, or do you just want me to answer that one particular question?
You've answered the question, but you may go into whatever you wish. I'd love to hear it.
I think I introduced myself, just in case I didn't. I'm Karen Violante, Vice President of 6084. And especially now after hearing the little details of this deal, I think it's a little premature to take a vote off the top of my head. So I'm asking that you reconsider and not send these layoff notices and reduction of hours to classified personnel. Although we're the lowest paid in the district, we have attempted to do our part to bring savings to this district. We've migrated people over from healthcare plans to a less expensive one. The district realized thousands of dollars in savings, tens of thousands of dollars. And from where I'm looking, it seems like these savings could have been put towards preventing these types of demoralizing layoffs. And now you're changing a learning assistant to this behavioral specialist. I think I'm taking a little bit of liberty calling it that. But if you knew 2 years ago that this was the direction that we wanted to go, it seems to me that these learning assistants who have been working for our district should have been given the opportunity and training that would have allowed them to retain their jobs instead of just, sort of setting that position aside and coming up with a new position. Why not cultivate our own? Why not reward them? They're already the lowest paid. Throw them a bone. Give them a chance. It's most difficult to accept that the board would look at cutting people who provide direct services to our students. At the same time, this body has been willing to spend thousands of dollars for lawyers to negotiate our union contracts, and tens of thousands more for administrative coaches and mentors. One could argue that these classified positions act as student coaches and mentors. We provide direct services and work towards student success. It just seems unfair that these classified positions are dependent on donations and fundraising. Sites want these services, and I urge you to budget for these positions and backfill somewhere else. Stop this year after year cycle of layoffs. It just seems unfair that our classified positions are depending on donations and fundraising. And I think that to vote for these cuts now would be premature until you look at other ways to fund these positions. Thank you for your consideration.
Another question? Do we have a time limit on this, and what is it and why?
Let me turn that over to Beth. We're required by Ed Code to give 60 days notice in layoffs. This is the last meeting before the month of May. May is Employee Recognition Month, and the board has asked us very specifically last year to not bring this resolution forward in May. So if we do not do it tonight, and you do not want to do it during the Employee Recognition Month of May, that leaves us with June, which means that notices given in June don't take effect until August, which crosses fiscal years. And it also delays employees' ability to collect unemployment insurance.
So I can, those all seem like solid reasons for me, and I'm recognizing the fact that it just adds to your job to put this down to the wire. But I am concerned about some of the things that Karen has said, and I would like to figure out how we can go about deliberating this in the future and thinking of ways that we can open these things up more to the classified to be prepared for, and that we can consider things like having jobs that are enough to have benefits before we get to this position again. Because now I think this is the third time I've been in this position, and every time it kind of creeps up on us. And that's nobody's fault, it's just the way life goes. But I would really like not to continue the same thing.
So I'd just like to comment that our PTAs and our home and school clubs choose to fund these extra positions and raise funds to do them. And if we combine them and they become then benefited positions, their fundraising responsibilities triple. And I'm not sure that we have these positions at all. So that's something that we need to consider, that these are additional kind of things that parents have decided they want to have as part of school programs. And there's an implication to any decision that we would make that would impact the decisions then that PTAs and home and school clubs would need to make. Because the majority of these are donation-funded positions that are additions or additional hours that are provided as a result of decisions that our parent clubs are making.
Basically, I just wanted to clarify that. These are, we're not funding base positions with PTAs. We're funding additional positions. And I think it was difficult to, I think it got conflated the shift from one position to another. And this, really what we're talking about here is that we have 13 positions here that are funded from sources where they don't know if they have the funding. I do have a question. Historically, what's the trend? These positions were here last year.
There's definitely
no fundraising changes.
Yeah, the donation accounts, I think the trend we'll see, they've been on here. Those of you that have been on the board have seen them. year after year. I think as far as the amount is concerned, Beth, how would you compare this to previous years?
It's about the same as it was last year, and last year was a lot less than it had been in previous years. We did work very hard early after the beginning of this calendar year to talk to sites and just give them a heads up. If you can work with your parent clubs and get that donation money committed before the deadline, we can avoid some layoffs.
Funded by donations.
These particular funds are not, these positions are not funded by donations. They've been funded by special education and Medi-Cal. And so that's different money. It is not going to reduce the number of hours because Medi-Cal has made a commitment to fund four 15-hour positions, one in each elementary school. And they realize that there is a difference in cost. So Medi-Cal is going to be able to, has agreed to fund that. The job description was developed before I got here, so it's at least 2 years old. And we've got some individuals already working in this job description in our SAIL program over at Harvard High School. So it's an existing job description. Because of it was determined at the time that this job description was developed that it was one range higher than a regular instructional technician position because of the higher level behavioral management skill that was required.
And then one more follow-up question. So that means some of these sites will have this new position and learning assistants available, potentially if they have donations.
We have learning assistants at all our elementary schools that aren't on here because they're not slated for layoffs. So they're not included in this, right? So the instructional techs or the learning assistants that are not special ed or Medi-Cal, those are the 4 that we're talking about. The other ones are donations, so those are those parent-funded positions that we talked about before.
These are not
The Medi-Cal.
And so mine is just for a point of clarification for funding when I read this. So you've answered it to the Medi-Cal will continue to fund as we've changed this job description. But will we still have special ed funding coming into the new job description for these 4 positions?
I think it's all coming out of Medi-Cal next year.
Okay, so then no special ed dollars will be following that, though they were previously at the tech level?
At the instructional tech level, so someone who's assisting in a special ed classroom is an instructional tech, not a learning assistant.
Okay, so it just takes care of that right there anyway. Okay, thank you.
Mark spoke to the issue of part-time versus full-time. I see these are all 3 hours a day. Does classified have a position on combining any of these? For example, you see a 3-hour day at Westlake and another 3-hour day at Westlake. 3 and 3 still make 6, and so then you're at a level where someone would qualify for health benefits, et cetera, et cetera. Does classified have a position? Thank you.
Do I need to use this? I think I can talk about it. Of course, we have a position on it. We would like to combine those jobs and give benefits. And I further am encouraged when I'm hearing that no special ed money is going to these positions, although you previously used special ed money. So the way I calculate things is, hey, there's money. Let's pay the benefits with the money. That's what I would like to see. I'm glad that you asked about the continued funding because I was too confused about it. It's like, wait, they're on the layoff list because we don't have money, but now we're going to give them more responsibility. This happens year after year. We get these layoff notice, reduction in hours, and it's heartbreaking, really. And I don't know if you want me to go into that now, Jeremy, or did you just want me to answer that one particular question?
You've answered the question, but you may go into whatever you wish. I'd love to hear it.
I think I introduced myself just in case I didn't. I'm Karen Violante, Vice President, 6084. And especially now after hearing the little details of this deal, I think it's a little premature to take a vote off the top of my head. So I'm asking that you reconsider and not send these layoff notices and reduction of hours to classified personnel. Although we're the lowest paid in the district, we have attempted to do our part to bring savings to this district. We've migrated people over from healthcare plans to a less expensive one. The district realized thousands of dollars in savings, tens of thousands of dollars. And from where I'm looking, it seems like these savings could have been put towards preventing these types of demoralizing layoffs. And now you're changing a learning assistant to this behavioral specialist. I think I'm taking a little bit of liberty calling it that. But if you knew 2 years ago that this was the direction that we wanted to go, it seems to me that these learning assistants who have been working for our district should have been given the opportunity and training that would have allowed them to retain their jobs instead of just, sort of setting that position aside and coming up with a new position. Why not cultivate our own? Why not reward them? They're already the lowest paid. Throw them a bone. Give them a chance. It's most difficult to accept that the board would look at cutting people who provide direct services to our students. At the same time, this body has been willing to spend thousands of dollars for lawyers to negotiate our union contracts, and tens of thousands more for administrative coaches and mentors. One could argue that these classified positions act as student coaches and mentors. We provide direct services and work towards student success. It just seems unfair that these classified positions are dependent on donations and fundraising. Sites want these services, and I urge you to budget for these positions and backfill somewhere else. Stop this year after year cycle of layoffs. It just seems unfair that our classified positions are depending on donations and fundraisings. And I think that to vote for these cuts now would be premature until you look at other ways to fund these positions. Thank you for your consideration.
Other question? Do we have a time limit on this, and what is the timeline?
You turn that over to Bash. We're required by ed code to give 60 days notice in layoffs. This is the last meeting before the month of May. May is Employee Recognition Month, and the board has asked us very specifically last year to not bring this resolution forward in May. So if we do not do it tonight, and you do not want to do it during the Employee Recognition Month of May, that leaves us with June, which means that notices given in June don't take effect until August, which crosses fiscal years. And it also delays the employee's ability to collect unemployment insurance.
So, those all seem like solid reasons for me, and I'm recognizing the fact that it just adds to your job to put this down to the wire. But I am concerned about some of the things that Karen has said, and I would like to figure out how we can go about deliberating this in the future and thinking of ways that we can open these things up more to the classified to be prepared for, and that we can consider things like having jobs that are enough to have benefits before we get to this position again. Because now, I think this is the third time I've been in this position, and every time it kind of creeps up on us. And that's nobody's fault, it's just the way life goes. But I would really like not to continue the same.
So I'd just like to comment that our PTAs and our home and school clubs choose to fund these extra positions and raise funds to do them. And if we combine them and they become then benefited positions, their fundraising responsibilities triple. And I'm not sure that we have these positions at all. So that's something that we need to consider, that these are additional kind of things that parents have decided they want to have as part of school programs. And there's an implication to any decision that we would make that would impact the decisions then that PTAs and home and school clubs would need to make. Because the majority of these are donation-funded positions that are additions or additional hours that are provided as a result of decisions that our parent clubs are making.
Basically, I just wanted to clarify that. These are, I mean, we're not funding base positions with TAs. We're funding additional positions. And I think it was difficult to, I think we got conflated the shift from one position to another. And this, really what we're talking about here is that we have 13 positions here that are funded from sources where they don't know if they have the funding. I do have a question. Historically, what's the trend? These positions were here last year.
There's definitely
no fundraising change.
Yeah, the donation accounts, I think the trend you'll see, they've been on here, those of you that have been on the board have seen them year after year. I think as far as the amount is concerned, Beth, how would you compare this to previous years?
It's about the same as it was last year, and last year was a lot less than it had been in previous years. We did work very hard early after the beginning of this calendar year to talk to sites and just give them a heads up. If you can work with your parent clubs and get that donation money committed before the deadline, we can avoid some layoffs. And we were able to avoid some by doing that. We tried to be very proactive. We anticipate that most, if not all, of these positions will be restored. Either some of them will be rescinded before the end of the school year, because as Alon said, some of the groups complete their fundraising and make their commitments in May and June. Others come in over the course of the summer, and some don't come back until the fall. It varies, but I would be surprised if these positions were not communicated. But again, our parent school club that has been funding a position over years, they say, well, we want to fund something else instead. And that's their right to do that. So we can't assume that they're going to make the same decision year after year. It's not our money.
And when you were talking about the child adults, those aren't homeschool club.
No, those are your medical and your special ed ones that are on here. Yes.
So my question is that you had mentioned that then you have commitments to any of those like not listening now, did they come up since because of?
No, they were before this.
And, this is the uncomfortable position in our school or trustee. And for me, I think that there are two things that I want to say because I want to make sure that both sides are heard. One is that when parents tell us they believe they are needs, so as a district, we have to start deciding our needs that the district needs to take on, and how we as the trustees will start allocating for them. I mean, we have consistently seen parent groups raising money for many years. They're letting us know as a community members that we're not like other communities. Like you said, things can change. I do know one of the pieces for me, as I move forward, is that the parent groups are capped. we as a state and the great state of California, not to say anything disparaging to our learner, we're not finding our needs and they're not sustainable. So we are in a difficult position. So it is not, when these decisions are made, they're not made lightly, that people don't count, but they're made practically so that we can move forward. And I was the person who asked that we bring this sooner because I can't celebrate and lay someone on the same level. So when the decisions are made, I hope that is heard.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around this new position. So it's my understanding that this new job description will only apply to those positions that are funded by the national.
And the special ed position.
And special. Okay. Which is 4. And the other learning assistant positions that are funded through donations, you would not be able to combine those with the Medi-Cal funded positions, correct?
Well, like Chris said, I mean, there's a cost to that, right? And so it's a whole benefit package, and that is up to the parents who are paying the bills, also up to if a grant or Medi-Cal what's in budget.
One more question. I thought I heard you say, Molly, that you were going to provide opportunities for these current learning assistants to get some professional development, to gain some skills and knowledge to apply for the position. Did I miss you?
Yeah, I know if I like that, that's not what I meant. They will have the opportunity to apply, and again, it's these are positions, not people. I know there are people in these positions, which is what makes it so difficult. So depending on what skills the people have, we definitely let them know that those are openings, and if they're qualified, they can apply for them.
I would mention one thing with regards to combining positions. Many of these positions, they're targeted at, what do you have here called the need of the day? Where there's, you need people, you don't need people from 8 to 11 and then 11:30 to 2:30. You need people from 10 to 1. And so to combine positions when that need part of your day, when we're running programs that you need that support in, you can't have one person doing 2 of those. So a lot of times we'll overlap in the time that those will be taken. So that prevents some positions from being combined.
Okay. Sorry for taking too much time with this. I have to say, truth in advertising. My mother was one of those people who got 3.99 hours, so she didn't get benefits. So I have a particular personal issue with this, although I understand it in terms of practicality. For me, it's the answer that it has to do with donation, I understand. Not all these have to do with donation. I thought Karen was addressing the ones that didn't also. And I think that what hit me with Karen saying it is that the idea that if we really think that in an ideal world we would like to be able to have people with benefits who have a decent salary doing the job, and yet don't live in that ideal world, I understand that. But in some ways I think perhaps even the PTAs need to know that when they're making decisions, they're making them to make sure, they're not funding benefits because they feel like can't handle it. But maybe people need to know that, and maybe we need to have that discussion. And some of what feels frustrating as I'm looking at this, and I'm with you, I was kind of lost. But I'm looking at, we're talking about in changing the job, and we're talking about what would happen if we didn't have time. We're talking about donations. We're talking about 3 different populations. I'm assuming we're talking about them all together, because if we did one-to-one, we have to do all of them. I mean, it's a lot for us to be deciding tonight. And I thought I had such a special ed, and somebody said, no, and then it turns out, well, no, they are. And so now I'm entirely confused. Well, they're funded by special ed.
How are they funded by special ed? Not special ed.
One was funded by special ed. We were overstaffed with special ed learning assistants at one point, and you decided to not lay off the position and use that person in any intervention. That is why that was the funding source.
And it will continue because I like your folks in the.
They're all humanities.
They're
all of those four.
Okay. So, I think it's the level of confusion. I think it's just making it again. I mean, I agree, Karen, with quite a few of your points. I also think that, you know, people are trying to do the best they can here. But I think in it, just that there's so much information to understand that we probably shouldn't be forward. We got it. Because there's lots of different things going on. So when I was asked my question, I wasn't asked about donations. Because I understand the donations are hard. I'm not thinking about it. Even though I think that the donations are an issue, that it's more of a.
So she's happy next year, you know, that was in the board book, so I'm happy when that comes out to sit and talk to anyone. Because if it's in the board book, and if it's an issue, but I'd be happy to sit down over it with anyone before.
What wasn't in the board book? I think it's the specifics of the new job or zero job.
Well, the layoff resolution was in there.
And every year we are going to have layoff and negotiation of positions until we have, and I'm sure that's unfortunate, it's just the reality. When we have a generous community, we're raising dollars, just as we're doing things every year.
Am I allowed to talk? Well, I was just going to say that there's an obvious solution to those donation-funded positions. And I think the parent community has spoken loud and clear when they raise money to provide these services. Perhaps it's a long time that we look at building these positions into our actual budget. And maybe you get donations for something else.
Setting aside, if we were to wait until the last meeting in May, is there a chance that some of these positions would be funded through the donations?
I can't answer that. I'm not at PTA needs to know what the discussions are right now. Some will meet at different times in May and also June. Some executive councils actually meet when school gets out of some PTAs. But I would encourage us to listen to the time frame that that's laid out because there is a timeline that can affect employees negatively and others just negatively if we wait too long on this.
And what I really want to assure you is that as soon as the funding is available, we will be bringing employees back. I mean, it won't have to wait. So if we get funding in the middle of May, that employee will be notified that their position's about to know that before the end of the year. One reason I really like to do it this early, as I do, because it's really the latest we can do, and one reason I like to do it now is because I can meet with each one of these employees individually and explain our options. And their options might be that there are vacant positions that they come up into if they don't want to wait the donation to come in. They do have other options. They come up, other employees. We typically have a lot of resignations at the end of the year and over the summer needs. So I really like to be able to explain all of those things to employees individually. Last year when the board acted in June, everybody was scattered, and I couldn't meet them, and I sent them letters, and I tried to reach them on the phone, and so I think out of respect to our employees, who these donation people in particular, they know this is coming. It comes every year, unfortunately, that's just where it is. So from a standpoint, I think of being respectful to our classified employees and being able to communicate accurately to them and then present them with their options, and they get a chance to ask questions. I think this is the right time to do it. That's my.
For what I'm thankful that it's not taking so long anymore.
It has been, yes.
I just want to say, with all due respect,
I care about your jobs,
As
but
you
we
just
don't
said,
let
their
parent
donation
groups
positions, of course, we want to treat people with respect and want to
plan
hire them all back. It
out
sounds
parent
like there's
groups.
a good
I
chance.
mean, I happen to know because I'm a parent what some of these are. They're flexible, they change. You need a theater technician one year, you might need
I just wanted to
somebody
say
in the
one
classroom
thing
the next
about
year. And I
that
think
whole
that what
issue
we
of
aim
deciding
for
where
is
we
a
went from
strategic
And I think that that's
staffing
something we started to
plan,
do.
not
We talked about in terms
wholesale
of
make people core
talking to the community about what do they want the
I mean,
most. And I think it's a conversation we have to
comes up
keep
every year.
talking about.
As you just
because,
said,
there are
donation
some things that
positions,
have
of
slipped
course, we
out
want to treat people
because
with respect. We
they
want
slipped out.
to hire them all back.
With
It
the budget
sounds
going
like
down.
there's a good
And the
chance
question
that
is,
will
what
happen.
do we really want to happen and how much do we value certain things? I noticed one of the things the parents said was that they did like to have learning assistants, teaching assistants in the classrooms. So I think that perhaps, Karen, that's a larger issue that we have started the discussion of, that you're just making me think we have to keep discussing.
Do we have a motion?
Hi, I'm Tim Madsen. I'm a parent at Westlake and active in the PTA. And I'll point out the obvious that this is actually not something that should be responsibility of parent groups. These positions should be funded by the state, but that's not the case. It's not your fault. It's the government and population's fault. They don't want to contribute more money to public schools. But given the case that we do have to provide all this money for funding of basic staffing, we actually do a lot of fundraising for it. I'll say Westlake fundraising is actually behind our projections and goals, and it's likely that we actually will fund less to the district. There'll be less donations to the district this year to fund these positions. I believe we fund at least 9 positions to some degree at Westlake. And so, that's a lot of fundraising. I don't think we're going to hit those same numbers this year. So you probably do want to be a little bit prudent about that. As far as the combining for staffing, we did have a situation a couple of years ago where we were funding an employee position, and it turned out at that point it was a lot more expensive than was expected. That additional cost didn't come with additional donations. So what we did is we had the same money, we just bought less employee time. So I don't know if they cut our hours or found money elsewhere, but adding benefit costs doesn't help the PTAs actually pay for those employees. Okay, it's a zero-sum game. You only have the money we have. Those spending decisions at the end of the year are generally driven by the administration. There's a certain amount of money that the parent organizations have to spend. We look to the administration to say, all right, what do you want to fund? And it has to be something that parents would get behind. I'll say that I've actually never heard any parent say no to a suggestion. So, generally whatever gets asked for does get funded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Allison moves to approve. Is there a second? Dee Dee seconds. Any other comments? It's a roll call. We'll start with student recommendation. Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Do we need a break?
No, we're almost there. I need a cookie though.
Okay, the next item is 3.6.
You didn't know what you said.
So our next item is a side letter agreement between the GSCFT and the Santa Cruz City School District. And you can see those, and I mentioned those earlier to some of you as far as what they are. I'm going to flip my page here. We have 2 side letters to look at. One, say the first one is in regards to the LCFF and class size reduction, and the other one is the agreement for the layoff notices, for the final layoff notices. I did explain these in closed session. I'm happy to take questions if you have any, since we did talk about them.
We have a motion?
side letters.
Approval.
Yeah.
Second.
And who is the second? Allison?
Thank you.
Further discussion? All, student recommendations? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And our next item is 3.7, is the superintendent's contract. Okay, we need to have a motion.
Second.
Okay, so Patty and Dee Dee. No, Allison and Dee.
Thank you.
Any conversation or questions? Okay, all in favor? Oh, public?
Public having?
I glanced at it.
Are there still, did they hear?